Yo, so what is the Musty and how do you control it? The Musty is a backflip flick. It was created and popularized by the man himself, Musty, in 2016, and it's been a long way since that first ever Musty. And freestylers have come up with ways to control them, to add power to them, and to even chain them. So that's what this video is about. The Musty flick from a freestyler's perspective. Yo! So today we're gonna be trying to perform, trying to train, trying to progress doing powerful musties and controlled musties. We will go through first understanding the shot just so that you get an idea, a general idea of what you're looking for whenever you're going for musties, and then we're gonna go through just all the little things you can start tweaking about the musty to actually do musties, because you can actually do musties in many different ways. It's not just doing a backflip flick. So we're gonna be going through all of that. So first, what's the first thing you need to know about musties? Well, like any flick, you have to get a consistent angle of approach. So what I mean by that is whenever you're doing a 45-degree flick, you're always flicking whenever you're in a very specific position with your car, and then with that position then you can actually start flicking the ball and a bit more consistently. So it'll be the same thing with musties. Musties are not just doing a backflip and that's it. You have to do the backflip at a very specific position, and we have to go into understanding at which position is the best one to go for a musty. So there's that. And then the second thing about musties is that whenever you're doing a musty, what I like to think about is catching the ball rather than just flicking it. So you'll notice that whenever I do a musty, we'll take a look at it from the side. So you'll see that I'll catch the ball before flicking it. Okay, that lagged. Okay, wow. I adjusted at the end, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. There you go. See how I catch it with the backside of my car first? So that's what we are really looking for. Whenever you're doing a musty, you're not trying to just flick it right away. Otherwise, you will either slap it, or if you do get a good one, well, you get a good one, but it will not be very powerful. So what you want to do is hold up. So you have all this power built up from the cancel, and then you flick it as soon as you uncancel. So I forgot to put this here. And whenever you're doing musty, you'll notice that every single time I try and cancel. Okay, so what I do with that is I'm really just trying to catch the ball with the backside, and then as soon as I see that I catch the ball with the backside, that's when I flick. There we go. So you'll see from the side that I catch it with the backside first. There we go. And then as soon as I know that that's the case, then I uncancel. So there's really just very little things you need to know about the musty. First is in whichever way you want to do the musty. If you want to do a power musty, or if you want to do a controlled musty, or if you want to do just a basic musty, then you'll have to make sure that you do the musty at a very specific angle. Then the second thing will be doing the musty, but thinking about it as a catch and then a flick. So you have to catch the ball, and then it's not only after you catch the ball that you can actually flick it. You can of course do it just by not canceling, and that's fine, but you won't get too much power. So you always have to cancel and catch with the backside. So with this little part of the car, with like, yeah, the backside, you could say. It's still the roof of the car, but it's more in the back. And then we'll also get into adjustment. So whenever you're doing a musty, there's lots of ways in which you can adjust. Whenever you're doing musties, it's not only just backflipping, because then you won't actually be able to catch the ball. You also have to adjust like a breezy. In the case of breezies, it's easier to adjust because you're always switching between positions, and it's a little easier to choose between which position you want the breezy to go. If you do it early, then you'll go to the left. If you do it late, you'll do it to the right. And so that's why breezes are a little bit easier to do, because you also don't have to think about where you're flicking. Whenever you get into this position, then you're always flicking at this very angle. So that's why it will be a little easier to do breezes. In musties, you always have to do the same angle to do a good musty, and so now you have to think about the angle rather than the direction of the shot. So that's why it will be a little harder for some people, easier for some if you get the timing right, but it's really just that. So there are tons of ways in which you can adjust. The first one, the more common one, is adjusting by just moving your car mid-shot. So you see there how in the middle of the musty, so once I get here, I'll move to the left or to the right. And I will usually do that movement diagonally, although sometimes if I see that, for example, the ball is too far away, I can also stop moving my stick. So I'll put that last musty in slow-mo, and you see that since it's a little far away, I have to stop my car so that I time it correctly, and I just don't move my stick. And as I'm doing that, I also move my stick to the left or to the right. So you really have to think about doing that movement mid-shot. As you're upside down like that, you can move either to the right using your stick to the left, or to the left moving your stick to the right. And that's usually the most common way of adjusting. Now the second way of adjusting is through a cancel. If you don't know much about cancels, you can check out my masterclass to understand way more about cancels. You can check the last video on active resets to understand a bit more about cancels. You'll see there in a section how I explain them. But the thing is just understanding that when you do a backflip cancel, you can also do the cancel and move your stick diagonally, so a diagonal input as you're canceling. If you see something like this, where you're doing that but it doesn't actually cancel, then that's because you have some problems and you should check out the other videos. But whenever you're canceling, doing a backflip cancel and then moving your stick diagonally to the right or to the left, then you can actually move your stick. So that's the second way you can actually adjust. You just make sure that whenever you're doing a musty, you can actually kind of adjust with that bit of movement as you're canceling. It's not too much adjustment. It doesn't help as much as doing that mid-shot, but it's still an adjustment you can do. Now the third adjustment is really just you doing the musty sideways. So whenever you, for example, your spins don't align with your musty, and you have to do the musty, then what you do is you actually do the backflip on the side, and that's fine. Although you will notice that the backflip doesn't actually flick the ball up. So what you have to do is you actually have to airroll, so 90 degrees, and then you'll notice that as soon as I uncancel, the motion of my car will be transferred upwards rather than to the side. So you can also do that, and that also works. So it's just 3 ways of adjusting your car in the air. You can combine them all, so you can actually see how I can do a bit of airroll, a bit of stick movement, a bit of motion mid-shot, and I'll still get a bit of that really cool musty canceling. So those are kind of the things you have to understand. It's 3 basic things. So it's just flicking in a very specific angle. So you always have to flick just like a normal flick would do. You have to flick at a very specific angle. The second thing is you have to make sure that you cancel every time so that you catch the ball. See there how I catched it? And then the third thing is just little adjustments. And there are a ton of adjustments that you can do in order to actually get musties. But now we'll get into the cool part, which is actually doing power musties and controlled musties and pinpointing the difference between both. So the first one we're gonna go through is power musties. These ones are a little bit easier, and this one's there's no real way of practicing musties other than just going in the ground, in the air, whatever you want to do, but just always trying to go for them, just going for them as much as possible. We'll go through two ways. I usually prefer going for it on the ground first and then up, but some people actually like to go for them in the air first, and we'll go through both of them and it's fine. Both are the exact same thing, pretty much. Okay, so in the ground, what you're looking for first is you want a consistent flip at a very consistent angle of approach. So the way we're gonna train that is we're gonna actually go around the field and make sure that whenever you're flipping, you cancel, and just cancel. Don't let go of the stick. And you always end up in the same position. So here what I'm trying to do is land on my forewheels like that. There we go. And so you just get comfortable with the timing. So you can jump a whole lot and still be able to land on the forewheels, or jump very little and still be able to land on the forewheels. Just make sure that you get comfortable with, there we go, I did it too early. Just get comfortable with landing on your forewheels. You can try and not move your stick, so at some point just try and stop touching your stick, and you should still be able to do it. Try and do a little adjustment if you want. Just anything, any adjustment that makes you actually flip at a very specific position and consistently. Okay, so now that you have done that, now let's take it with the ball. So the first thing you're gonna need is to actually get a good pop, and this is one of the first mistakes that people encounter, is that whenever they flip, they actually don't get a really consistent pop like that. And you'll be like, what do I do? One little tip that I suggest you do is you actually boost throughout the jump. So what that will do is it will make it so that the ball comes back, so it gets so it rolls towards you. Whenever it rolls in the other direction, it will pop. Whenever it rolls towards you, it will just stick to your car a little bit more, like that. So you want to boost a little bit as you're doing the jump while you maintain your stick back, and then you will see that it will pop the ball a little bit like that. So just try and boost a little bit. If you don't boost, it'll probably be just either too far away, it'll be just a little hard to recover. And one thing that you're also looking for is whenever you're doing the pop, don't be scared of doing the pop too far back, because you will still be able to do the musty. Be afraid of doing the pop and not being able to get to the ball. So that's another thing. Now that you can do that, now that you can do all of that, now let's take it with the ball. You pop it. There, see how I didn't boost. And now you have to cancel it and make sure that you catch the ball. So what we're looking for is this little touch with the back wheels. There we go. Like that, see? It will be very difficult, so don't get frustrated if it's difficult for you to do this, but it's still something that you're looking for. Those little touches. If you do that right, you'll see that whenever you uncancel, you'll just get a little bit of a musty. If you time it well enough, you'll actually get a pretty powerful musty. So now that you can do that, let's go in the air as well. So in the air, what you're looking for is for a tiny touch, and then whenever you're doing the musty, you're always looking at doing the musty at a very specific angle and at a very specific distance from the ball. So you have to play around with this. It's something that you don't just practice and get consistent at from day one. You will have to mess around a little bit more, but it's still the same thing as in the air. You're just looking for that very consistent angle of approach, and whenever you do get that, you'll start to get a bit more consistent with musties just by getting consistent with that angle of approach. And now that you understand angles of approach, now we'll actually get into controlled musties, the one you're probably looking forward to. But first we need to get into power musties. Also, another thing before we get into controlled musties is depending on how fast the ball drops, you'll probably get a more powerful musty every time. So that's something to keep in mind, but it's a little harder to catch the ball because it's moving downwards, and so it's sometimes a little harder to get that pop. But what you really want is the same thing. You just want to approach the ball at a very specific angle and always flip at a very specific, with very specific timing. Okay, so now controlled musties are a bit more difficult to do, and the only reason is because rather than catching the ball from behind, so rather than doing this, just catching and then uncanceling, you're actually kind of sneaking in underneath, getting a really smooth catch from underneath at a very specific angle of approach. So in this one, you can see that whenever I'm catching the ball, I'm catching it like at a 45-degree angle with my car. You'll see here. So right there, 45-degree angle, catching it. Now, whenever I'm doing a controlled musty, I'm actually sneaking in underneath the ball and then doing the musty. So the angle of approach, the timing of my flip actually changes. And I'm also trying to get the flip with a little bit, maybe with a bit less of my backside and maybe a little bit more of my front side, but it's still the same thing. So my angle of approach changes. There you see how I noticed that I canceled a little too early, and so the angle of approach, the angle of approach wasn't quite correct, and so I just uncancelled a little earlier so that I could actually get that musty to go upwards. So yeah, for controlled musties, that's really what you're looking for. So you're looking for a really nice catch underneath the ball. You can also uncancel early, as I told you. Like, you can still uncancel a little early if you see that you're not very well placed, and you can sometimes slap the ball, and that's fine. But if you want a really cool controlled musty, you're gonna wanna really get that little touch there. And now, one thing that people struggle with the most is they'll actually not be able to follow up the ball. So they'll do something like this, and they'll be like, oh, what did I do there? Oh my god. And so it'll be a little hard for them to follow up, and they don't know what movements to do in order to follow up the ball from a musty. And one thing you'll have to start getting is understanding that you can actually double cancel. So whenever you double cancel, you actually cancel for that catch. So you first cancel to get that little catch, and then you cancel again if you need to control your car. See how there I canceled 2 times. If I just cancel one time, it just goes a little bit far back, like that, and it's a little hard to recover. However, if I uncancel 2 times, then it's a little easier for me to follow up, because it's all about timings as well, so don't get frustrated. It's just all about getting that perfect timing so that whenever you actually uncancel the second time, you're going in the right direction and all that good stuff. It's always such a small uncancel, like your flip is already kind of almost like finished, so you kind of just have to cancel for a split second, and then you can actually start doing adjustments. So it's really not that big of a deal if you just uncancel another second time. You will usually have to do that. Then the adjustments come afterwards. Okay, so now that you know kind of the inputs, where you have to uncancel, to do the powered musties, to do the controlled musties, now let's get into progressing to it. So the way you progress to it is really, there's really not one way. This is a pretty difficult mechanic to master. It's just a simple mechanic to do at first, but if you want to master it and make sure that you get these really powerful musties that freestylers get all the time, you'll have to actually train a little bit for it. In the 5th shot of this training pack, we'll actually get into first just making sure that you get the right amount of distance between you and the ball as you're doing the flip. So here we're not really focusing on doing a ton of stuff as you're doing it. It's just a little bit, it's a little hard to approach the ball close enough so that you can actually catch it. Otherwise you'll end up slapping it like that, and that's not what you're looking for. You're actually looking for a little catch. Even if you get this amount of power, it doesn't matter, because right now you'll see that the ball is not dropping. So if the ball is not dropping, it won't get too much power, but don't get discouraged by that. But you're really not looking for a slap like this. And you can do it, it's fine. But if you're trying to practice very, very powerful musties and very, very good cancels and all of that, you're probably gonna wanna start doing these little catches there. And yeah, you can definitely get good at doing slaps, but it's then just a slap. It's not like a cool musty. It's not as smooth, you know. So I'd much rather practice the smooth, cool thing. And yeah, in this one, you're really just getting comfortable with maybe doing some little adjustments, making sure that you boost the correct way, because that's usually one of the biggest problems. You just kind of flip and you don't know where you're there. I flipped too early as well, so you always have to flip in the same angle, and you always have to approach the ball at a very consistent distance. So it's the distance at which you flip from the ball is also very consistent, depending on how far away and how fast the ball is moving. But that's something you'll have to practice. But yeah, here we're just practicing boost management, little adjustments, because here you'll notice if you just go for it, you won't get it. That's why I put it a little bit to the left. So you have to actually practice little adjustments. You'll see that with my stick, I'm actually moving a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. I can change the direction of the shot just to make sure that I adjust for it, and see how it's very little adjustments. But this shot is really good for that, because you can adjust very like super small adjustments, and you make sure that you get them correctly. If you just notice that you do this and then you have to recover for the ball, that's not right. You actually have to make sure that you get the most out of a flick. So you have to make sure that it's always in the right direction. It's always, you're flicking it in the right direction, so towards the goal, rather than to the side and then like recovering like this. You can also do that, but it's not what you're looking for whenever you're practicing this. And this little training pack is just for adjustments and for really boost management, those two things. And whenever you're actually training the shot, what I usually recommend is you going for either the ones in the ground, so that's probably the one I practiced with the first, but the second one is air dribbles. If you don't know how to do a turtle air dribble, you can maybe use checkpoints or something, but it's really simple to get a little air dribble like this and then practice doing those little catches with the ball. You can probably set up the ball like this in training pack yourself. You don't really need a very specific training pack, but you're usually looking for cancels. Unless the ball is super close to you and dropping fast, you maybe won't need to cancel, but you're usually looking for a cancel. And right now we're not looking for a very specific direction for the musty. We're just looking for that powerful musty. Then you learn how to control it. But we're just really looking for that really powerful musty. There we go. And there I did a little double cancel. I did the double cancel. I follow it up. Just make sure that you cancel every time and you try and continue that motion. There we go. And that's really it. It's not a mechanic that you're practicing very often. It's just something that you start to learn with time, because it's really requires very small adjustments, and the inputs are not as difficult as some other flicks, but you'll start to master it. Try and make sure that you get out of your comfort zone as much as possible, and you'll start to get the controlled musty. See how there I catch it, and I catch it at a very specific angle, and I try to flick it upwards as soon as possible. It's always a catch and then a flick. You can also slap it, of course, but it's still a very difficult thing to just do. And yeah, I do give private coaching sessions in Masterclass. You can check out the link here. I do give a Masterclass course, and with it you can progress from doing really anything. If you're at 300 hours, it's for you. If you're at 10,000 hours, it's for you. There are a lot of things you can learn from it, and I'll be really glad to help you. It's all about helping you improve and seeing you get your own style, and maybe I'll see you in the freestyling scene, which would be actually awesome. So yeah, that's it for now. It was really nice talking to you again and being part of your freestyle journey. Peace.